Hi guys, welcome to another tutorial. So today I'm going to be drafting a bustier pattern and I'm going to be drafting it from scratch. So I'm going to be using my measurements for this tutorial. Measurements, I'm going to be needing my tape and my scissors, and then I'm going to be needing a pencil and a marker. So make sure the scissors that you're using is not the same one you use to cut your fabric so it doesn't get blunt. Now guys, we have our measurements down, some of it already. So that's our shoulder measurement and our neck measurement. So for our neck width and neck depth, I use 3 inches. That's the same thing. And then for our chest line, 7 or 8 inches depending on the size. And then the next we have our bust point, and then we have our under bust, and lastly our waistline. So our shoulder measurement, we're going to be dividing our bust measurement by 6 and adding 1.5, and whatever we have, we're going to mark it down there from that 1 inch mark. I came down by 1 inch on the shoulder, so from there we're going to be marking whatever we get from dividing our bust by 6 and adding 1.5. So for our back is basically the same thing. We have our normal shoulder measurement and then our armhole measurement. Our chest line and then our waistline measurement. So that's all we need for our back pattern. So now to start, we're going to be dividing our nipple to nipple measurement by 2, and we're going to impute that from the chest line and we'll take it down to the waistline. Next, we'll mark our dart by half an inch. You could decide to go in by 0.75, but I usually use half an inch, and then we'll connect that upward to our bust point. Now I'm inputting our waist measurement plus 1 inch for that. So our waist measurement divided by 4, and we're adding 1 inch to it. And we're doing the same thing for our bust, but the difference is that we're not going to add 1 inch. So we're going to take that down. So for our bust measurement, we're going to mark that on our armhole line, as you can see there. So now for our armhole, we're going to divide it by 2. We're going to divide it into 2. We're going to indicate that with the line, and we're going to go in by 0.75 inches, and this is how we're going to curve our armhole line. This is how we're going to curve our armhole, sorry. So at this point you could use a curved ruler if you have one. So now for our back, we're going to input the same measurement we did for our nipple to nipple measurement. We're going to input it on the chest line and on the waistline, and then we're going to connect it just like we did at the front. We're going to do the same thing, taking the dart of 1 inch, and then we're going to connect it to our chest line. So now we're going to put our waist measurements, the same thing we did for the front. We're going to do that. We're going to put our waist measurement and we're going to add 1 inch to it. So guys, I made a mistake here. So I marked it on my chest line instead of marking it on my armhole line. So don't do that, don't make that mistake. So whatever your bust measurement is, you're going to mark it on your armhole line instead, and you're going to connect it all the way down to your waistline. As you can see, I'm trying to cancel out that line so I wouldn't cut it mistakenly. So for the back, we're going to do the same thing for the armhole, but we're just going to go in by half an inch instead of 0.75, and then we're going to curve it down the same way we did for the front, but we're going to make it less deeper. So if you notice, the front armhole is always deeper than the back, so we're just going to make the back less deeper than the front. So now I'm going to take out 1 inch or 0.5 inches for my zip bulge. As you can see, that's what I'm doing there. And then from our shoulder line, I come down by 3 inches, and I'm going to connect it together now. So I'm going to connect my new waistline because I added it back. So I'm going to connect it to my armhole line. So I'm going to take out that first line that I put there, and this is just me indicating the parts that I'm going to cut off. So this is the basic bodice for the front and the back, although there's one more step that is to be taken, and I'm going to indicate that through the video, and that's like the side dart intake, so that our front and our back are going to be the same length. So I'm going to indicate that in the video. So now to our under bust. For our under bust tightening, we're going to get our under bust measurement. We're going to divide it by 4, and we're going to mark that on our under bust line, and then the remaining measurements that you can see there, we're going to take the measurement, and then we could divide it into 2 equal parts, or you could share it unequally. So I put ½ inch on the smaller side, and I put the remaining on the bigger side. So guys, I made a mistake here also. It's very normal to make mistakes while sewing. So I made a mistake here because I put in too much on the side, and I'm going to correct that later in the video. So now we're going to curve our bust cups, as you can see. So on our chest line, I just went in by ½ an inch on each side, or you can do 0.75 or 1 inch, depending on how busty that person is actually. You could do 1 inch on both sides, 0.75 on both sides, or you could also share it unequally as I did for the under bust. So this is just me, trying to, share it for the upper bust or over bust tightening. And I'm just trying to use my pencil to, carve out the shape I want for my bustier. So guys, at this point I'm checking if my under bust is the same, and this is why I found out that it is not the same. So I'm trying to connect it together. I'm trying to correct it now. So I went in and I corrected my mistake. So I corrected that, and now my underbust is my underbust is good. So this is the part that is important, because without this part, your front and your back is not going to rhyme. So to make the front and the back be equal, I took out 1 inch, because I took out 1 inch from the side of my front piece. So this is what I'm doing here now. So just follow this method. So I took this out, and we're going to close it after cutting, so that our front and back will be at the same measurement. And this is just me trying to cover my neckline. So that's what I'm trying to do. And guys, at this point, if you don't need the yoke, you could just curve your blouse the way you want it. And so now I'm extending the lines. I'm adding allowance for my joining, my waist joining. I'm adding it on the pattern. So guys, there's this thing I do. I try as much to add allowance on my pattern because it just makes cutting easier for me. So if I add the allowance on the pattern, I don't have to add it on the fabric. And especially with stretchy fabrics or fabrics that are hard to draw on, it's more advisable that you add allowance on your pattern when you can. So I wanted my back yoke to be a bit deeper, so that's what I'm trying to do here, and I'm just indicating where I'm going to add allowance to. So now guys, this is where I cut out my pattern. So the back is really easy to cut, but the front is where you have to really be careful and watch where you cut. So for my neckline there, as you can see, I just finessed it because I didn't have any definite type of neckline that I wanted for my yoke and main blouse. So now this is me taking out that side dart so that my front piece and my side piece will be equal. Like I said about adding allowance as much as you can, so this is what I'm doing here. I'm just adding 2 inches for the side seam allowance on my pattern. So that's what I'm doing here. All our patterns are ready, and hopefully I'm going to make a sewing video. Thanks for watching guys. Bye.